PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub, we are going to be breaking down something that I have noticed and an issue that we could be seeing in the future. And that video is going to be, does your Vegas Golden Knights have a goaltender problem? What in the future, and where does it lie when it comes to the goaltending? Who is really the starting goaltender? Who is going to be the main guy when it comes to your Vegas Golden Knights in net? We're going to talk about everything on here on Vegas Hockey Hub on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. Check out the website, by the way, as they have a lot of stuff going on. They have about a dozen shows on the network, including Vegas Hockey Hub. So go to the website and check that out. They also have social media pages on all major platforms at PR Connections. We also have a YouTube channel, so if you subscribe and like this video, it would be much appreciated. While doing that, also go to our social media pages, because we're also on all major social media platforms as well, at Vegas Hockey Hub. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We are everywhere right now at Vegas Hockey Hub. And if you want to support your host, Ian Rachiele, I'm also on all social media platforms as well at Ian J. Rachiele. So getting into this situation here, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because over the last couple of games, I have been noticing a trend with your Vegas Golden Knights. I have been noticing that over the last little bit, and just using the most recent game, for example, the game against Detroit, Adin Hill, he's in net, he wins that game, but Adin Hill has started 5 of the last 6 games for your Vegas Golden Knights. And a lot of that would lean towards the fact that he is the starting goaltender, right? That is what you would tend to believe, is that Adin Hill would be in net and he would be your starting guy moving forward because he has started 5 of the last 6 games. However, if you've been watching this entire season, and if you've been paying attention to our Vegas Hockey Hub recap shows, which we've been doing all year long with your Vegas Golden Knights, you will know that Logan Thompson was holding down the fort while Adin Hill was hurt. That when Adin Hill went down with that injury at the beginning of November against Vancouver, then he came back and then he got hurt again in December against Ottawa. Logan Thompson was a workhorse. He was an Iron Man of sorts. He was the guy that was in there and he was in net almost every single night. In fact, there was a stretch of time where Logan Thompson started 7, 8 games in a row with Yuri Patara starting an occasional start here and there with your Vegas Golden Knights. So when it comes to moving forward, you have to ask yourself a logical question. Who is the goalie one, right? Who is the number one goalie with your organization? Moving into the future, who's going to be the main person? Who's going to be someone that's going to be in net for your Vegas Golden Knights when we get to that part of this situation? Because I'm going to give you 2 arguments, okay? Argument A is going to be for Adin Hill, and then argument B is going to be for Logan Thompson. Now, to set the tone with this show, I will be going over Adin Hill and looking over the 29 starts that he has had with the Golden Knights. And then with Logan Thompson, I will be doing the same thing. I'll be looking at the starts that he has done to establish this argument here. So, when it comes to does Vegas have a goalie problem, what I'm really asking is who is going to be the main person? Who's going to be the actual person in net moving forward? Who's going to be the guy to pretty much put this into perspective? So getting into this here on Vegas Hockey Hub with your host, Ian Rachiele. So let's start this out with Adin Hill. So there's going to be some people who are going to be remembering this, and there's some people who aren't. So let me give you a bit of a refresher. Now, towards the beginning of the year with your Vegas Golden Knights, some people are not going to remember the fact that Adin Hill was the starting goaltender to begin the year. And this is actually something that a lot of people have not really remembered because the season is so long. And of course, we are where we are now. Adin Hill was phenomenal. Like the first 2 months of the season, Adin Hill was doing an incredible job. He was a MVP of the Vegas Golden Knights the first 2 months. In fact, actually, there was even consideration about him being in the Vezina Trophy conversation. That's how well Adin Hill was doing, right? So, with Adin Hill, he comes off of winning that Stanley Cup final. He comes off of that run of going off and really doing what he was doing to begin the year. That's what a lot of people remember. But what some people may forget is that Adin Hill was actually doing so much better. And some people may not also remember that he won his first 4 starts of the season for your Vegas Golden Knights. Adin Hill started out with winning 4-1 against Seattle on opening night against the Seattle Kraken. He then follows that up with back-to-back wins against Anaheim and against Dallas. He only let up 1 goal and 2 goals respectively in that situation. Then they go to Chicago, and against the Chicago Blackhawks, they pick up the victory there as well. So, when the Vegas Golden Knights had that strong start to the year, they had that undefeated streak in the first couple of weeks of the season. Adin Hill was in net for the first 4 games of that series. He was incredible in those 4 games. Some people, like I said, will remember that. Some people may need a refresher on that. Adin Hill did a really stand-up job in those first 4 games. And then he had a little bit of a mishap against Chicago, the first loss of the season. He was in net for that one. And then he comes back and he does phenomenal against Montreal and against Colorado, getting back-to-back wins and a shutout against Colorado on November 4th. So just picture that for a minute. The first 7 starts that Adin Hill was in net for your Vegas Golden Knights, he is 6-0-1 because that Chicago game was an overtime loss. So 6-0-1 in the first 7 games of the season. Essentially, the first month of the calendar year, he went without a loss. It was until mid-November with the Los Angeles Kings that Adin Hill gets his first regulation loss. Okay, gets his regulation loss. Then that makes him 6-1-1. And then what does he do to overcome that, you might ask? By winning back-to-back games immediately after. He beats San Jose, gets a shutout in the process, and then beats the Montreal Canadiens while in Montreal. So, for your Vegas Golden Knights, you have a situation where in the first 10 starts of the year, Adin Hill is 8-1-1. And considering the stats that I will bring up, and I do have to give Hockey Reference all the credit, by the way. I did not discover this. This is all Hockey Reference for the stats that I will be giving up. But for Adin Hill, he had an incredible first month of the year. And that first month of the year was really followed up by 2 duds immediately afterwards. Unfortunately, he loses against Pittsburgh, and he gives up 3 goals in that situation. That was actually his worst game up to that point here on the Vegas Golden Knights. And then, after picking up a 2-1 overtime loss to the Calgary Flames, then he has back-to-back performances. He beats the Dallas Stars in overtime. That was a 2-1 effort there. And then you get to the Vancouver game. And the Vancouver game is so valuable to Adin Hill because not only did he win, it was a 4-1 victory for your Vegas Golden Knights, but that's where Adin Hill got hurt. So Adin Hill, he gets hurt on November 30th, and he is out for a while for your Vegas Golden Knights. But I want you to remember this statistic very quickly, okay? I want you to actually sit back and remember what this stat was. Your Vegas Golden Knights, in his first 14 starts of the season, okay? His first 14 starts of the season, your goaltender, Adin Hill, he had a win-loss record of 10 wins, 2 losses, and 2 overtime losses. So overall, that was a fantastic job by Adin Hill. before he got hurt. But I have to keep on reminding you of that. It's before he got hurt. Him going 10-2-2 is a really good record, and then Adin Hill is rehabbing. He tries to come back in the middle of December against Ottawa and gets hurt once again in the first 10 minutes of the game. He had to skate off. Logan Thompson gets back into the game. They did beat Ottawa in that game, but Logan Thompson had to come back in once again. So Adin Hill, he has to sit out for 1 extra month. So when Adin Hill comes back in the end of January, his first 4 performances made him look like an incredible player. The first 4 starts that Adin Hill had since coming back from injury, he takes on the New York Islanders in the end of January and wins that matchup. Then they go to Madison Square Garden, they take on the New York Rangers, and Adin Hill wins back-to-back games. So you are 12-2-2 at this point. Okay, you go up against the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton Oilers, they were riding a really long win streak. Your Vegas Golden Knights beat them with Adin Hill in net. 13-2-2. Arizona, they win that one. So I want you to keep this in mind. I want someone to write this down or someone just to keep a mental log. His first 18 starts of the year, 14 wins, 2 losses, and 2 overtime losses. Here's Adin Hill's stats, by the way. 14 wins, 2 losses, and 2 overtime losses in his first 18 games. You see that stat right there? He had 16 wins, 8 losses, and 2 overtime losses. That means, by the way, that he has been, over the last couple of weeks, 2 wins, 6 losses in his last 8 starts. And don't worry, I'll recap them for you. I was at the Minnesota game. They lost 5-3. The next week, Carolina, Adin Hill's in net. They dropped 3 goals in that situation, and the Vegas Golden Knights lose to Carolina. They go up against Nashville, and in the game that Mark Stone gets hurt in, they lose that one as well. So Adin Hill goes from having a win-loss record of 12-2-2 to then losing 3 straight and going 14-5-2. Right? So at that point, 14-5-2, it doesn't look as glamorous as 14-2-2. But okay, let's shake it off. Against Toronto, he comes in for relief for Logan Thompson, and he actually lets up a couple of goals in that game against Toronto, where they scored a touchdown on your Vegas Golden Knights. It was not pretty, to say the least. But he wasn't in the net to start out the game, so when he does play against Toronto and he is in net for that one, the Vegas Golden Knights win that one 6-2. So he goes to 15-5-2 at that point. So you know what? That's 22 starts, 15-5-2. He's still doing a stellar job. Well, has anyone watched what Adin Hill has done the last 4 starts? The last 4 starts against the Boston Bruins, they lose 5-4, and Adin Hill gave up a goal that, in my opinion, it shouldn't have been a goal. I think Adin Hill could have gotten there if needed. All right, 15-6-2. They go up against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they let up 6 goals in that game, the Vegas Golden Knights did, and Adin Hill being in net for that one, that knocks him down to 15-7-2. Goes up against Vancouver, loses 3-1, 15-8-2. Now, the only thing that's actually saving Adin Hill is that in his most recent matchup against the Detroit Red Wings, they did pick up the victory there, and that's how you get to 16 wins, 8 losses, and 2 overtime losses. Now, the 29 games played, you might be asking, he had played that first couple of minutes against Ottawa. That did not count. That's 27. He came in against Toronto. That does not count as a win or loss since he was coming in for relief. And then there was the game where they lost against Carolina, and he had to come in to relieve Logan Thompson late in the game. So overall, when it came to the Vegas Golden Knights, this is, a Logan Thompson situation, Adin Hill situation, but just stop and analyze what we're talking about. In 26 starts for Adin Hill, 16 wins, 8 losses, and 2 overtime losses. But like I mentioned, he has lost 6 of his last 8 starts. So after having that fantastic start to the year, 14 wins, 2 losses, and 2 overtime losses, ever since February hit and ever since March has turned around, Adin Hill has struggled mightily. Outside of the Toronto game, where I think the offense really helped out in that situation, and then you had the Detroit game, which I will give him some credit. He did do good there. Adin Hill has struggled, and part of me thinks it's because of the injury. Ever since he came back in January, it seems like Adin Hill is not at 100%. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't at 100%. But overall, with Adin Hill, I just really sit here and look at it and go, if you're the Vegas Golden Knights, do you trust him moving forward? If you are the Vegas Golden Knights, is this somebody that you really sit at and look at and go, you know what? This is a guy who, despite losing 6 of his last 8 games, we're going to trust him moving forward. No, you're not going to. I think with Adin Hill, him being the number 1 goaltender, if you would have asked me back in October, if you would have asked me back in November, it would be a no-brainer type of situation. Adin Hill would be the number 1 goalie. But this isn't October, is it? No, this is not October. This is not November. We are in 2024. We are a couple of months into this. So when I really stop and look at what Adin Hill has done recently, it's a cliche, but it's true. In sports, it's all about what have you done for me lately. And with Adin Hill, it's just a reality that, despite the great start to the year, despite the 7-1-1 start, despite the fact that he went 10-2-2 to begin the season before he got hurt, it doesn't matter. Because his most recent track record is showing that something is happening with Adin Hill. Something has happened in order to make him how he's played the last couple of weeks. Now, moving over to Logan Thompson, okay? So argument A is with Adin Hill, and I said that he had a great start to the year. He did. And when he was in the playoffs last year, he had a phenomenal run. He had an MVP level run last year. He did. In fact, the playoff experience might be the edge with Adin Hill, okay? The playoff experience and what he has done in the most previous postseason might be the reason why your Vegas Golden Knights would have a reason to pick him over argument B. But the con to argument A is that Adin Hill has struggled, and ever since he came back from injury, he has taken a step back. Now, getting into Logan Thompson, right? So Logan Thompson has had ups and downs this entire season. He started out by winning his first 5 games of the season. Yeah, some people will totally not remember that Logan Thompson was 5-0 to start out the year. He beat San Jose 4-1, and then the next opportunity against Winnipeg, they win 5-3. Then they win a 3-2 matchup against Philadelphia. That was a good back-and-forth matchup, but they did win the victory. The Los Angeles Kings, in a shootout, they would win that matchup 4-3. Logan Thompson did really solid in that shootout, by the way. And then, against Winnipeg, I was at this game, the Vegas Golden Knights would win 5-2. So, just like how Adin Hill started out the year, 7-1-1, Logan Thompson started out 5-0. Logan Thompson looked like one of the best backup goaltenders in the NHL over the first couple of weeks of the season. Now, November 5th, he does register his first loss. That was at Anaheim, and it was a situation where the Vegas Golden Knights just let that game get away from them, and Logan Thompson had to suffer the L. Now, what followed was 5 straight losses for Logan Thompson. Not only did they lose to Anaheim, but they lose to the Washington Capitals. They had no goals scored for Vegas, and Logan Thompson gave up 3 goals there. Against the Philadelphia Flyers, he had a good matinee there, but they lose in overtime 4-3. And then they lose 2-0 against the Arizona Coyotes. Once again, the Vegas Golden Knights did not score a goal in that situation. And also you had to deal with the fact that Connor Ingram turned into the prime Dominic Hasek in that matchup. And then against Edmonton in a shootout, they would lose to Connor McDavid. So Logan Thompson goes from having the first month of the year being 5-0 and actually being a star of the week with the Vegas Golden Knights to then losing 5 straight, 2 of them in overtime, might I add. But at that point, Logan Thompson, the first 10 games of the season, is 5-3-2 at that point. And you got to remember what Adin Hill was in the first 10 games of the season. Adin Hill was 8-1-1. So when you really compare Logan Thompson and Adin Hill, 8-1-1, 5-3-2. Now, that was not bad by any means, but it was just noticing a trend. It was just something that you did have to pay attention to when it came to the fact that in the first 20 games of the season, the Vegas Golden Knights had a really good record, but Logan Thompson, it looked like he was just taking a step back in that situation. Now, when Adin Hill gets hurt against Vancouver, Logan Thompson would step up mightily as he would start, and I really can't believe this is an actual statistic, Logan Thompson would start 8 of the next 9 games. Logan Thompson would start 8 out of 9 games in December. And as a matter of fact, when it came to December alone, Logan Thompson started 10 of 13 games while Adin Hill was out. To say that he is an Iron Man would be an understatement. I mean, think about the work ethic. Think about the workload that you would have to have 10 starts in the month of December because Adin Hill is out. You had to have 10 starts in 1 month because the team had nobody else. No offense to Jori Patara, but he's not ready yet. So how did Logan Thompson do in those starts? Well, he picked up a win against Washington. He picks up a win against St. Louis. He picks up a win against Dallas. And he picks up a win against Calgary and Ottawa. That was the game where he came in for relief against Adin Hill. He also ended the December by winning against Los Angeles in the final game of 2023. So Logan Thompson, he ends up in that situation. He has 6 wins in the month of December. But he also racked up 4 losses as they would lose in overtime to St. Louis. I don't blame him for this. It was a 2-1 loss. Logan Thompson actually did pretty solid there. He had a 5-2 loss against Buffalo. That didn't look pretty. They lost against Carolina. He got pulled in that matchup, actually. And then you had a 5-2 loss against Anaheim, where the Vegas Golden Knights were leading towards the third period, and then they just fell apart at the end. So at that point, if you're Logan Thompson, you're heading into 2024, and there's a huge question about when Adin Hill is going to be coming back. So what do the Vegas Golden Knights do in January? Well, they trust Logan Thompson to stay in net once again, as Logan Thompson would have 9 starts in 10 games. Jori Patara only started the Colorado game in the beginning of January. So just really put that into perspective. Logan Thompson started 19 games and 22 starts. So in a 22-game span from when Adin Hill got hurt to when he came back, Logan Thompson started 19 of 22. And in the month of January, it started out rough, okay? He lost 4 games in a row. He lost in the Winter Classic against Seattle. They lose against Florida. They lose against Calgary. And then there was an overtime loss against the New Jersey Devils. Detroit Red Wings, they lose that matchup as well. So unfortunately for Logan Thompson, he has 5 losses in the month of January. But what I haven't told you is that he would win against the New York Islanders, pick up the first win of 2024, then in overtime would beat Boston 2-1, and then go on a run of winning 3 games in a row against Nashville, Pittsburgh, and New York to kind of add momentum towards the end. So for Logan Thompson, he had a stretch of time where in 9 starts, he ended up having 5 losses, but he also had 5 wins as well. So in the month of January, Logan Thompson was like a roller coaster. He had some downs, and then he picked it back up in the middle of the month until Adin Hill came back. There's no exaggeration that if you don't have Adin Hill, Adin Hill does not come back at a certain point, Logan Thompson was holding down the fort. And you know what? It was 500 hockey, but 500 hockey will be good enough to get you in the playoffs. Considering what was done in October and November, the December and January being around 500 would get the Vegas Golden Knights into the playoffs. Now, Logan Thompson has started 4 games since Adin Hill has come back. And Logan Thompson has gone 1-3 in those 4 starts since Adin Hill has come back. Outside of the shutout to San Jose on February 19th, he lost against Toronto. He was in net actually to start the game. He got pulled after letting up so many goals in the first period. Then they would lose in a shutout to Ottawa. And then his last performance was a devastating 7-2 loss to the Buffalo Sabres. So Adin Hill has lost 6 of his last 8 games. But Logan Thompson, he has lost 4 of his last 5. So when it comes to goaltending, I'm going to pass it over to you. What do you think? Does the Vegas Golden Knights have a goaltender problem? Adin Hill has lost 6 of his last 8. Logan Thompson has lost 4 of his last 5. I want to know from you. Here's the stats, by the way. HockeyReference.com is where I got it. Adin Hill, 16 wins, 8 losses, 2 overtime losses, a save percentage a little under 92%, and a goals against average under 2.4. His 2 shutouts happened at the beginning of the year. That was in October and November. Logan Thompson, 17 wins, 12 losses, 5 overtime losses, a save percentage above 90%, and his goals against average is right now at 2.77. Now, thankfully, his 1 shutout is more recent than Adin Hill, and that was in February against San Jose. So this is Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele, and I just wanted to pass this over to you, and I wanted to ask you, what do you see? And more importantly, who would you trust moving forward with your Vegas Golden Knights?